Steven Universe is such a fun subject to talk about because the series is so rich and has so much to cover, which means I can make 1,000 Steven Theory videos if you guys keep tuning in. This is part 2. I did a part 1 about mostly Steven himself, and what I call a Let's Chat with my daughter Kyrie, which was just kind of talking about Steven Universe, not so much theories. And today I'm going to go over mostly crystal gem stuff. So, why was rose quartz on Earth? There is a line in season 3 where Bismuth mentions that rose was made right here in the dirt, and it makes it sound like the here Bismuth's referring to is Earth. But that feels contradictory to things we've already heard throughout the series, so I think it was a more generalized here, as if to say she came out of the ground like the rest of the gems. So far, the show has only referred to the amethyst and jasper kindergartens. They're called prime, which would imply the first setup, and beta, which is the second letter of the Greek alphabet, but there's been no mention of a gamma, zero, or any other kind of kindergarten on Earth. So I feel pretty confident that rose quartz was not created on this planet. I don't really have a lot of evidence yet, but I have a strong feeling that rose quartz was a type of general or commander, something that would be in the role of an overseer at a new colony. We aren't completely certain what the homeworld gems are all about, but they are very much structured like a military system with rank and hierarchy, except your placement depends on what you're made of gem-wise, since that dictates your talents. Based on what Rose tells Pearl about never being able to return home, that means that Rose and Pearl were not created on Earth, but sent to it to produce amethyst soldiers. Since rose quartz has a lot of power involving life and using it for protection, that really sounds like the kind of gem you want in charge of developing your armies, doesn't it? That would explain why Rose was sent to Earth and why she seemed to snap after thousands of years and started a rebellion, because her creations were destroying the planet and being destructive forces themselves as an army when Rose is a protector. Rose felt responsible, and that's why she always came off as feeling guilty about her past. Because for so long she had held up her mission to Homeworld and ignored the devastating effects it had on Earth. So, on that same line of thought, why did Lapis get sent to Earth? Lapis mentions to Steven that her mission to Earth was supposed to be short, but how long exactly is short to a being that lives forever? It could be a few days or a few thousand years. I think Lapis was sent to Earth to enrich the planet with more plant life. Now, that seems like a waste if Homeworld only wanted to harvest gems and hollow the planet out. But consider that creating gems is not that much different than planting crops in this scenario. For instance, if you're a farmer, you would likely practice crop rotation to where one year you'll plant soy, the next year corn. Soy naturally puts nitrogen into the soil and corn sucks it out, which produces a better product. There's also a few known examples of plants that appear near certain gems, like the, and I am going to say this wrong, Pandanus candelabrum, which only grows near diamonds. So it's possible, since we don't know the full scope of how gems are created in Steven Universe, that Homeworld has found a beneficial purpose for growing certain plants. All this is really just a long way to get to the idea that Lapis was sent to Earth to terraform the planet, meaning Lapis is the reason that most of the plant life exists. The song, What's the Use in Feeling Blue, directly states that a lapis only functions to terraform. And generally speaking, terraforming is a science fiction term to make a new planet hospitable. But since the gems likely came to Earth prior to the evolution of man, that means the planet was terraformed to suit gems. Since we're certain that gems don't breathe oxygen, that means there's no use for a lot of plants, and creating the atmosphere had another purpose. That purpose is either related to making more gems, or something more sinister that the show hasn't brought up yet, like the gems intended on creating the human race, or something like it, so that they could enslave them as well. I mean, Peridot does mention that Homeworld is running out of resources, so maybe there's a Matrix-like plot going on. Oh, What if Steven is just a top secret homeworld experiment on how to make new gyms with less energy and effort? I don't think that's the case, but oh, what fun it is to speculate on that idea. Okay, let's get on a not so dark topic. Since pearls are known to be a subservient type of gem, who did our Pearl, the main Pearl in the series, belong to? This is really debatable, and I'm sure other people have covered this issue in depth. And to be less confusing, hopefully, I'm going to keep referring to the main Pearl of the show as our Pearl. I've heard it mentioned that Pearl might be a defect because of her behavior and her gem shape, but I don't think that's the case because Peridot mentioned that our Pearl looked like a really fancy one, meaning that our Pearl originally belonged to someone very important. Now, the most obvious choice for our Pearl's owner is Pink Diamond, since we see that Blue Diamond and Yellow Diamond have their own pearls as well. Funny enough, those pearls are color-coded to match the diamond they serve, and they seem to match their personalities to a large degree as well. Yellow Pearl is smug and short-tempered with other gems, as if she has a superiority complex. Blue Pearl is more somber and mopey, reflecting the personality of the perpetually crying Blue Diamond. And our Pearl is a fighter, which seems to be how people remember Pink Diamond. I don't know if the hair changing to a more orangey tone is a personal choice, or because the effects of Pink Diamond's influence over Pearl is wearing off over time, but we can probably all agree that the similarities in appearance are there. However, we're also told that other high-level gems own pearls as well, so pearls are not exclusive to diamonds. For example, when the crystal gems break into Pink Diamond Zoo, Sapphire pretends that our Pearl is her servant, and Agate sees nothing wrong with it, so it must be pretty common. Agate definitely regards Sapphire above herself because she keeps calling Sapphire by the title of Your Clarity as a show of respect. So it seems that any gem who is deemed important enough can own a pearl. So if we have a gem like Rose Quartz, who was likely the equivalent of a general in the gem military, that means that Rose Quartz was a very trusted soldier and likely a very important one too. Rose would have probably needed assistance with many tasks all over the earth, and her mission would warrant getting her own pearl. Our Pearl is also shown to be a pilot in multiple episodes, and that was likely one of the functions that Rose needed her to have before Earth was colonized. After all, how would you get to Earth before the warp pads were installed there? You'd have to fly. And belonging to Rose would explain why Pearl used to have more pink tones in her hair, as well as why Pearl was so overly devoted to Rose. I could see a scenario where, after a while, Rose Quartz started asking Pearl to be less of a servant and more of a companion, and Pearl, being such an insignificant gem on the hierarchy, was so overwhelmed by this feeling of friendship that she served Rose even more diligently than she had as a slave. I mean, Pearl even shows us a holographic projection of a treasured memory that she keeps of Rose calling her my Pearl. It wasn't a romantic pet name, it was a loving remembrance of how they came into each other's lives. This last one is not so much of a theory, more of a detail that I caught and loved. When the cluster is coming alive and Steven tells Peridot that he loves her, she just says, "Wow, thanks." And the way she says it seems kind of sarcastic and rude, right? Well, a few episodes before that, Steven actually tells Peridot that when someone gives you a gift, you say, "Wow, thanks." Peridot never had anyone care about her before. Look at her face in that scene. Steven's love is a gift to her, so she's genuinely thanking him for it. But she's so socially awkward, the gratitude isn't properly conveyed. Oh, and when the gems have the baseball game with the Ruby Troop, Lapis gives herself the name Bob. Do you know why? In the episode when Steven heals Lapis's gem, he says, "No prob, Bob," and Lapis gets a little annoyed and tells him that that isn't her name. But when making up a persona later, she defaults to the name Steven unintentionally gave her. Aww! Lapis and Peridot are both such softies right under the surface. Okay, this is feeling long, so I'm gonna cut it here. And the next time I do Steven Universe, I will be talking about the diamonds. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed enough to like, subscribe, and share this video. I've also got a lot of other videos on my channel that you are fully encouraged to go check out. Plus, you can find me on Facebook at Say Halo Goodbye, which is my gamer tag, or Twitter at _Fanily.